Okay, welcome everyone. Only a couple of items on the agenda today. The first one's more of an FYI link to the GitLab kickoff document that just details the things that we've committed to as deliverables that are worth mentioning in our monthly kickoff call. That's scheduled to happen on the 8th. More of an FYI. And then I thought we could do a quick review of milestone 12.2 and just see if anybody had any questions or comments. So I'm looking at it now. Should I share my screen, do you think, or should I just go through referencing it?
Just go through referencing, I think.
Okay, cool. That's what I thought. Okay, so this first one is Sarah's actually working on, which I believe allows us to start making progress towards accounting for NPM tags. Sarah, I am not super familiar with that issue. Do you have any updates that you want to add to that? I think you're on mute though.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't hear the first part. Like the sound went out for a second.
Oh. I was saying, I think you created this first issue, which sets us up for allowing for NPM tags. But I'm not super familiar with this issue, so I didn't know if you wanted to just talk about it briefly for the team.
Oh, sure. Let's see. It's the NPM tags that we had talked about last time, the dist tags. So Steve and I had a pairing session about a week or two ago, and after we reviewed everything, it made more sense to create a separate table. So in order for it to be just reusable and for us to not just cram everything into one column and to be able to eventually call packages versions by the multiple their tags, so that way we're not limited and just creating a many to many relationship, I think, if I remember correctly, or just one version will have many tags. So for now, what I'm working on is creating that table in the model, the packages metadata table, something I'll be working on this week. So normally with this, we should still be able to keep the same milestone that you had added to the issue. Does that answer the question?
It totally does. I just wanted to catch up and hear about that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Super helpful to have that quick walkthrough. Appreciate you doing that on the spot.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. Okay, so a couple more issues then. One is we're working through adding OAuth support to the personal access token. That's related to the other feature that's adding personal access token support for the NPM registry. So that's a really key feature for NPM. And Steve, I believe those are assigned to you. We have a couple of front-end issues. So Nick is working on the improve the dependency proxy user interface, which I saw that's coming along nicely. The container registry user research is going well. Actually, Dan, I met with one of your pals this morning, Chris Heinen, and he was really helpful with talking about his work at Envision. So I have 2 more interviews to go, and then I could just digestion and I'll updating what actually some ideas and concepts. We're working on this to determine the path forward for the container registry. I think we're all up to speed on what's happening there. Dan, you're really spearheading that one with Steve.
Sorry to interrupt, Tim. Does anyone need want an update on where that's at and what that is? Happy to give people a little bit of a sort of status update if you're interested. No? Yes, no? All right, there's a thumbs up there. Steve's like, yeah, I got this. So yeah, I think the idea here is like how we look at the architecture of our container registry going forward in order to actually satisfy our product goals for maturity for container registry. Right now, we've sort of at least situated around two possibilities, but effectively we've sort of come to the conclusion that we'd be building it ourselves in some capacity, whether that's through implementing it, some of it in Rails and then in Workhorse, or forking and developing on top of the Docker distribution registry open source project. One is completely in Go and one is not, and one is partially in Go. So like either way, we need some Go skill sets here. So I need to look at how that's going to happen for the team. I've had a couple of chats with Stan Hu about this separately since we had the meeting the other day, Tim, just FYI, and I was able to help him sort of understand some of what we've talked about separately with like Camille, for example, on migration and how that would happen. So in terms of how this impacts the team, we will be ending up with several tickets, I imagine, around either we'll have some POC work to do in either case, and then eventually we're going to be looking at this as a way to be able to implement such things as simple things as ordering the list of packages that we have, which is obviously something that our customers would probably really like. I don't even need to say probably there because we know they'll really like that, thanks to Tim's work. And even to the extent of, how do we deal with scale and can we actually, clean up these packages, garbage collect and retention policies and all that sort of stuff. This is all dependency work. So if anyone has any thoughts around that, you can interact with that issue. Complete the determine a path towards complete for the container registry and happily post it in any thoughts in package or put it in there to have that conversation be asynchronous.
And there's that blueprint doc that you created that's linked in the issue as well, which contains a summary of all of the details and much more of a thorough conversation. So that could be worth reading as well if you want to catch up.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious because you said that I created it again, but you still did most of the work in there, I think, Tim. Thank you very much for your help.
No problem. Okay, so then we have this improved navigation issue. This is a big front-end change for us where basically we're rolling together the container registry under one packages navigation item, and it has different impacts at the group level, at the project level, and at EE and CE. So I recommend going through that issue and maybe giving feedback. I know it'd be helpful for Nick and I as we work through some of the design implications and things like that. So that'll be a big navigation change for us that we're testing. So could be worth going through and just giving some feedback if you have time. And then we have some data collection and some API updates to the container registry. So being able to list the images and tags in a group, which is a highly requested feature, one of our most highly requested container registry features. So any concerns about any of those issues or any questions? I know we're coming up on the yesterday we were supposed to agree to scope. I think that's all done, but I just wanted to make sure there was no lingering questions that we needed to ask here. Cool, that's great. So Dan, the next item is yours.
Yep, so we have our next person joining the team Monday. His name is George Inez. He's in Melbourne, Australia, that is, not Florida. So we have an onboarding buddy who's in his time zone to give him a hand, which is awesome. Thank you, Darby. Shinya is going to be helping George Inez sort of learn how to GitLab in the early stage. But we can expect to have a little more emphasis placed on our asynchronous meetings. So be aware that for George Inez right now, it is, let's see, what time is it in Australia, Melbourne, Australia? It is 1 a.m. So, as that pertains to how we run our meetings and how we interact with people, please be aware that when we have an agenda, we have questions in there. I'm trying to be a bit better about it myself, but let's make sure we're putting those questions in there. And we may find questions from George and Ez, and we may find other, feedback and interaction that becomes a little more asynchronous. We've sort of got the luxury right now of all being somewhat time zone capable, but that's obviously intended. I shouldn't say that. It is intended at GitLab that we don't make too much use of that, because it will exclude other people who aren't in time zones the way that works. Subsequently, we'll have people in Switzerland and Romania. So you can imagine that this will become more of an issue that we have to focus our energy on doing a good job of as the team grows. So expect to have a new person joining the team Monday. I'm pretty excited about it. And I hope everyone else is as well. And obviously, if anyone has any questions, that's all I got.
Are there any teams that will be as time zone diverse as our team?
Yep.
I wonder if it would be possible to invite the manager of that team to a call one day, and they could we just have a call with them, and they could just give us a run through of best practices that have worked really well for them. So
I think I'm happy to do that. I think at least from what I've been looking at as manager in this team, I definitely feel like it's been relatively clear that from the conversations I've had, because it's been on my plate for a while, because we've obviously known this person is joining, and it's going to be a kind of an issue in terms of how we handle our asynchronous communication. So I think from my perspective, I feel like the async side of things is pretty well documented. I think in terms of actually how we communicate in real time, there are going to be delays. And so I think a conversation with a manager might be helpful in that regard. But I feel like at some level, Darby has someone that is in that time zone with Shinya. And so I don't know if you have any suggestions, Darby, because you've already dealt with this, but
yeah, it's fun. I mean, we can chat maybe later about it, but Release Krez is in New Zealand, but he's actually in Europe right now. So Krez is in New Zealand normally. Shinya's in Indonesia, Vladimir's in Russia, and then we have some people in like US time zones. So I honestly think like it really, a lot of it depends on those people, the sort of the outliers of the time zone, concentrations, like what their work hours are, like when they want to work. Shinya likes to work late. So he starts late. So that kind of creates some overlap, but that doesn't work for everyone. So sort of experimenting with that a little bit, figuring out what works for people. But with the 12-hour offset, basically you can't have everyone together at one time. So you got to maybe juggle a couple meetings. We try to split or like 2 team meetings every week, which kind of worked for a while. But and as the team grows and changes, it's going to evolve too. So it's really just improv the whole time.
We had I had a conversation with Dylan, who's in Sydney, I think. Sydney, and he's dealt with some of that as well, because he's located in Sydney and has team members all over the place. What he had done is actually do a retro and a grooming. That's right. He does a retro and a grooming each week, or the team does, and he sets those time zones so that a certain sort of distribution of time zones can attend one of those each week, and it's the opposite, right? And that way, everyone sort of does each other week. They do a grooming or a retro, and then the alternate week they're doing the other. So it's his strategy so far has been to have everyone equally inconvenienced by the time that those meetings happen, rather than sort of center it around a particular time zone. Like, okay, we're all sort of somewhat West Coast time zone here. And I tend to think that way. I tend to prefer to make it like slightly inconvenient for everyone than super convenient for some people and really inconvenient for other people. So, but I'm totally on board with Darby and respect his experience in this one. So we might be playing some jazz together as we figure it out.
That's great. Okay, cool. That makes a lot of sense. Thanks for that thoughtful explanation. The last one is me, and I just got word that our new product designer officially signed their contract, and they're starting on Monday as well. So we actually, I'm sure, Nick, that's a nice relief for you too, knowing that we'll have some consistent, trained professional on the design and some of the UX things. That's I'm really looking forward to that as well. So they start on Monday, and they're actually in Amsterdam. So we'll still maintain our dispersiveness. So.
Geographic diversity, I think, is the term we're using.
Yeah, geographic diversity. I like it. Well, cool. That's all the items on the agenda. Did anyone else have anything else? No, I'm not going to hang on. Thank you. I'm going to stop recording, and I will talk to everyone soon.